who built the pyramids in the so-called Americas and those who built the pyramids in Africa. Meaning that people could actually exchange technology, information, without colonizing each other. That being said, in the last video, which Franz Fanon spoke about, and he died in the early 60s during the area of a lot of the freedom movement, he was talking about what native or indigenous African people were doing to rid themselves of the so-called colonial master and of the struggle to do so and what it involved. And so it's to speak to where we were prior to with the first video, and once we were engaged with this colonized circumstance, what were the things that we did to liberate ourselves? Because sometimes the struggles that we've gone through gets minimized, as if somehow magically our freedom happened, that there was a consequence. Our people sacrificed. And to give context, as African people, what has been done has been really horrible. But if you look at the native people in Australia or the native people in North America, they were totally killed off. Genocide. We now have places called reservations, which are not even townships, where the native people live. And you go to Australia, they don't even call those people by their proper name. They call them Aborigines. And Aborigines is not, they have at least 6 to 8 different tribes still in existence. But they don't call them by their tribal name. They disrespected those native people so much, they don't even refer to them as their proper name. In Australia, up until the 1970s, the Aborigines were categorized with beast and fauna. They categorized them with the animals and the plants. So the only reason I'm trying to give context is sometimes one marketing business person said to me, the colonizer, the European, has done one heck of a job rebranding himself. From killing all these people, oppressing all these folks, and now they're champions of human rights. I mean, it's almost amazing. Like the people who killed literally everybody, raped everybody, stole, robbed, now have the nerve to have like courts and justice like you. Like you're the guy who raped everybody. How are you going to be a judge? And when I say raped everybody, it wasn't until I came to Africa, there's places where they got people called colored. Anybody ever heard of colored?
Yes.
It's so amazing that literally Europeans raped so many African women. They came up with a subcategory of rape victims, and then came up with a system where rape victims had to marry other rape victims. Like, if you explain that to anybody who's like never been at that, it sounds crazy. It just sounds like somebody who's just mad at white people. Like, white folks wouldn't do that. That sounds too crazy. Now, literally, they did that. Like, literally, only rape victims could marry other rape victims. And then they had the nerve not to give them their proper indigenous African names. They were given European surnames. So they couldn't go anywhere in Europe and use. Just like my name is Skinner. Do I look like a Skinner to you? Do I look like a Skinner? Who is that? I'm not a Skinner. The person who owned my great-great-great-grandfather when they got his liberation, whoever owned you, you had the name of their plantation. So let me say it another way. When they sold African people to different folks, the last person who owned you, and I mean owned, like cattle, like sheep and goats. You're going to be serving goats today. Goats. You had the name of that plantation. So you might have been born at the Smith plantation, sold to the Johnson plantation, but when you got your liberation at the Skinner plantation. And then that's your surname. And so even when we talk about surnames, because we talked about Europe and Africa in the context of this, remember, Europeans are very late to civilization. When we talk about how old we are, it's not just trying to be like, this is not about some black supremacy. It's really speaking to the fact that we had so many thousands and thousands and thousands of years to perfect civilization, to perfect socialization. So we came up with very sophisticated ways to engage ourselves. Let me say it another way. Like in Zimbabwe, they have totems. When you say your name, It has a meaning. When you say your name, you're really telling me a lot. Now, if your last name is Carpenter, what does that mean? Does that mean that you used to chop wood or something? Or does that mean if you change your job, you're a plumber now, you change your